Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, September 20th. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning Five and Change. You see a new face on there. That is the face of Adam Finkelstein, Director of Basketball Scouting for 24/7 Sports, and a sign, at least to me, that we were getting serious about covering basketball recruiting. This was a major coup for us to get Adam to come over from the mothership, as it was, and ESPN, and has furthered our recruiting on the basketball side in a major way. We're also going to have an update here in about 15 minutes from Steve Wiltfong, Director of Recruiting football side. So this was, we had to go really deep into the salary cap to get this show pulled off, but we'll have an update on Keon Keeley. I know everyone's geeked about Notre Dame commitment and his visit coming up for the Wisconsin game, but we are going to get started on the basketball front with Adam. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's get started this way. And as I mentioned, you were a big hitter at ESPN. Not many guys get to be on TV. We know this because we used to be affiliated with ESPN, and high school can further. Why you made the move? I think a lot of people assume ESPN's a last stop. You've come over here to be the boss. Tell us why.
Well, a lot of it had to do with the people I'd have an opportunity to work with. And I think that when the affiliation with CBS was significant to me, the commitment to covering recruiting in more depth than any other platform in the country does, and then to be able to play a big role in that. That was basically it for me. And then the other part was to be able to follow these players up through the draft. So, at ESPN, it was very like, hey, we've got the high school guys, we've got the draft guys, and there's not a whole lot of overlap. And I think just organically, when you've watched these kids since they were 15 years old, by the time they get to the NBA draft, you've got a pretty good understanding of who they are and the trajectory they could be on. So it's kind of a natural thing to be able to follow them through that point. And to be honest with you, that was where I actually have more experience at that level. I did 2 years of scouting for Marty Blake, who was the director of scouting for the NBA, and I did 3 years as a college coach, one at the Division I level. So it was something that my background kind of spoke to a little bit. I've always wanted to do it. So I think those were the reasons. CBS, the biggest platform on the out there in terms of recruiting, and the opportunity to follow these guys up through the draft while doing it with great people was that was the pitch to me. And it didn't take me very long to say, where do I sign?
Yeah, I think Adam raises a great point there. Back in the day, we were affiliated with ESPN, and just the way it is, recruiting is always going to be on the eighth burner there. And it's what we do here. And I think you brought up a great point, and I love the idea of the guys following through the draft, just because I think the ESPN model is built on guys going to college for 3 years. It's just not the way it is anymore. There's discussion of what you're talking about when these kids are between 10 and 13 years old now. So you're the guy for that. Speaking of which, let's start with the 3-1 fastball down the middle and get as many people as possible around the world to listen to this podcast. You can call us clickbaity if you want, but once he showed up in the stand, in the crowd,
okay. Yep.
Let's go, Bronny James.
Okay.
His dad. I was there when they built the new locker rooms. What was this? Somewhere in the last 80 years or so, and the middle locker was LeBron James. I think that was, post foreshadowing. They couldn't get him to get a year of eligibility there, but they've come around to Bronny. Just kind of put everything in context. How realistic is it? What you think is going to happen? I fully realize you get asked this on every podcast, but given the fact that there's been some real Ohio State chatter, I think it's.
Yeah, I think that it's, so much of it's been speculate. Everything prior to that Ohio State visit has been speculation about Bronny's recruitment, to the point where LeBron himself had to go on social media and basically clap back at everybody and say, hey, no one really knows what they're talking about here. And, and I read all this stuff because listen, my job is to figure out who the best prospects are, but you also have to acknowledge who gets the most attention, and nobody gets more views than Bronny James right now. And so I followed that I use the word news loosely. I'll say I followed those headlines. And just for me, it was all speculation, because I knew for a fact that some of those schools that were initially being tossed out, frankly, I don't want to say they weren't interested, but there was no dialogue. They were not recruiting him. And so, right off the bat, it was very clear that some of the headlines were nothing more than speculation. That all changed when they showed up to Ohio State. And that was the first thing. And to put it in perspective, Bronny James is someone who has never spoken about his recruitment on the record ever. I mean, there's not an interview with him. His dad's never talked about recruiting. So that tweet from LeBron, followed by that visit to Ohio State, that's essentially the only statements the family has ever made about his recruiting. And I thought it was telling, not just that it was at Ohio State, but that it was done in such a public way, going to the football game, LeBron tweeting about it. Bronny's mom is there as well. So it's a whole family. They're all in the picture. So I think, just based on what you're seeing from the family relative to any other school, it appears to be a very real option. But I do think that this is a process that will continue to play out. And let me be clear, I have no inside information. I don't want to add to the growing amount of speculation. But what I can say is that I do know that there are other schools that have some sort of relationship with the family in some way, shape, or form who are interested in pursuing him. And so we can see how that goes throughout the course of the season. I would not be surprised if Oregon gets involved. I would not be surprised if Michigan gets involved. I would not be surprised if Memphis gets involved. I think all of those schools would very much like to have a shot at making their pitch and understand what it would entail, not just in terms of who Bronny James is as a basketball player, but in terms of, all of the scrutiny that would go along with having him on your team. Of course, that scrutiny would probably be heaviest of all at a place like Ohio State because of, the local roots, of course. So, we're just going to have to wait and see. But as of now, Ohio State is the only school that the James family has publicly acknowledged in the recruiting process.
Yeah, and each of those schools you mentioned have a specific hook that you could easily pick out. The Penny Hardaway hook at Memphis. I believe Juwan Howard was probably on the Heat's staff.
He was.
With LeBron James. Okay, so you have that. And then, of course, the Nike hook with Oregon. My prediction was Bronny was going to be the first kid with his own signature shoe as a college player, given the NIL rules. I hope that doesn't happen, because I can just see my 16-year-old coming to me for the new set of Bronnies for $225, but we'll pass on that. I was actually impressed with Bronny as a player this summer, more than I expected to be. He was a tad raw, in my opinion. I think he's actually underrated as an athlete. He kind of reminds me of Gary Payton Jr. I don't know if that's a good comparison, but he's very strong and athletic for being 6 inches to 7 inches shorter than his dad. Yeah. What do you think of him as a prospect?
I think we're seeing the continued evolution of him as a prospect for all the accolades and the attention he got early in his career. I think one of the biggest compliments anybody could give him, and, the people around him, the supporting, the parents, is that he played the right way. I mean, this is not a young man who came out hunting stats or taking bad shots or searching for highlights. I mean, he was legitimately able to impact winning because he moved the ball, he passed it very well, he made open shots, and he was a plus defender. So all those things impact winning, quite obviously. What he wasn't, quite frankly, was much of an alpha. And I know that sounds like very counterintuitive, but, LeBron James Jr. was not the guy who you'd put the ball in his hands and say, go make a play. Now, we saw that start to shift in the recent EYBL season, and specifically at the Peach Jam. Yeah. And they were in what's called the PIT, which basically means they didn't qualify for the Peach Jam field, the championship field. So it's basically like the consolation division. But it was definitely the most aggressive we'd seen him. And to your point, I thought his athleticism in the open floor, both his ability to get downhill, and then his his vertical athleticism, not just as a leaper, but like the body control in midair. I thought that really stood out. And as I said, we know he can shoot, we know he can pass, he's got good basketball instincts, he can defend. That's going to give him a lot of potential to play pick and roll, which is, such a big part of not just the college game, but the NBA game after that. So he has not been one of the most productive players in this 2023 national class, but he has a game that translates really well, in my opinion, to subsequent levels. So and he continues to get better. So it's going to be interesting to keep watching. He's been climbing the rankings. I would expect if he continues to trend the way that he has in recent months, he will continue that climb. But you also alluded to something else there. He just doesn't have his dad's size, unfortunately. We were always waiting to see if there was going to be a growth spurt. And at this point, it doesn't look very likely. So, I think they list him at 6'3". That may be generous. But he's a very good player. He's got a game that impacts winning, and he keeps getting better, and he plays the right way, which, given the amount of eyeballs that's on him, is a real testament to his approach to the game.
I just want to echo those sentiments as someone who's involved with AA basketball for a long, long time. I give LeBron and his family a ton of credit, because anybody could have forced their kid into a leadership role and did not deserve. It was him. There were times you tuned in to see Sierra Canyon and you check your program and be like, why isn't Bronny in the game? I mean, he was, and they sent him to a school knowing that. It wasn't like the James clan is not knowing. So I give them a ton of credit. And I do think, like, had he been 6'7", maybe this would be different. Maybe they waited, but I think you make some great points. I think he's also, from what I've heard of people who know him, so he's friends. Gabe Cupps lives within 10 minutes of where I'm sitting. And so he's been around, and very solid approach to the AAU, as opposed to, as you know, there's some seemly stories out there, and the James clan has stayed away from that. Let's bring this up to current events. Taison Chapman, the apple of Ohio State's eye right now, will be committing tonight at 8:30. He's from Minnesota, so I don't know if that's Central Time or not. I will have that hooked up by the time we are ready to roll here. Can you bring us the latest on that? And should Ohio State fans be getting an alarm for that, or sleeping through it to avoid depression?
I think they should tune in. I don't have any inside information, but I think they should tune in, if for no other reason than I think that Taison is one of the, in my opinion, the best guards in the country. I said this on Twitter the other day. We have him ranked, I think, higher by a pretty notable margin than any other outlets in the country. And the more film I go back and watch, the more convinced I am that we have him too low. So I'm just very, very high on him. I think he would be an absolutely perfect fit for Ohio State if he were to make this decision in their favor tonight. I think he'd be a perfect fit for Chris Holtmann. And I think that this is a potentially very big deal for Ohio State fans tonight, because, as I said, he's a guy who, in my opinion, is a McDonald's All-American candidate. It would not shock me if NBA scouts are very intrigued by him sooner rather than later in his college career, regardless of where that may be, because he's got the size, he's got the poise, he's got the natural kind of instincts and feel for the game. He's got a versatile enough floor game in terms of the way in which he can impact the game and the things he can do with the basketball. So, as I said, I'm very high on him. I've got a little bit of buyer's remorse that we didn't put him even higher in our rankings. But I think that, similar to what I said about Bronny, if he continues to trend in the direction that I expect he will, that he'd very likely continue to climb those rankings.
Yeah, Ohio State, the last time they've gotten guys like this, D'Angelo Russell or Malachi Branham, it's been a one and deal, so we know that drill. All right, let's finish with this, Adam. Just give the people a general sense of where you think Ohio State is as a program, and kind of maybe your general expectations for the year ahead. Obviously, we'll check back with you more and more during the season and when we get closer to that, but just give the people an idea of where you think Ohio State stands at this point, kind of overall.
I think within the college basketball community, Ohio State is one of the most respected programs out there. Holtmann and his staff are viewed as tremendous evaluators, tremendous developers of talent. They're viewed as very, very smart in terms of their systems and their ability to execute. So I think that they have, and the other thing I should say, they're also viewed as ethical operators. I mean, everybody
Important.
knows you. Well, yeah, everybody knows you're not going, and sometimes this frustrates some fan bases. They're like, why didn't we get this recruit, especially before NIL, and everybody's like, why didn't we get this recruit? And it was like, well, because there were certain lines they weren't going to cross, and everybody knows kind of what to expect from Chris Holtman and his staff. But honestly, I have only positive things to say, and because I think that Ohio State fans should be very pleased with the product that comes out on the floor, but also the way in which the school is represented, throughout the course of the season. So they are very well respected throughout the industry.
Much like yourself, and we cannot be more thrilled that you have joined the crew. We appreciate Adam stopping by. We're going to try and have Adam on as much as we possibly can. Like I said, we dipped into the salary cap big time to pull him from the mothership. Adam, I really appreciate you joining us today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
All right, man. Now you know what's up. We don't mess around here at 24/7 Sports and Bucknuts. We go from Adam Finkelstein to Steve Wiltfong, further into the salary cap. Steve, how goes it, brother?
Hey, good morning, Daniel. You doing all right?
I'm doing very well. You are the man of the hour. I love it when stuff comes out on a Sunday or Monday for a Tuesday recruiting pod. And you got the scoop. Keon Keeley out of Tampa visited for the Notre Dame game. A one-time Notre Dame commitment. He's the number one defensive end in the country, according to 24/7 Sports, I believe. He is headed back to Ohio State this weekend. Just give us the latest, try and put it all in context, and share the good news.
Well, this is a story that was brewing throughout the day. Bill Kurelic actually posted on Bucknuts earlier in the day that he thought Keon Keeley could be back for the Wisconsin game. He is indeed expected for his second visit of the month. Had a terrific official visit. I think that for Keon Keeley, he really feels like he fits in with the guys in the Ohio State locker room and the commits in the class. He's formed a relationship with guys like Luke Montgomery. And then certainly, talking to his mom after the first visit, just getting that time with Larry Johnson and his track record of developing the caliber of prospects he has is exciting. And Ohio State checks a lot of boxes for Keon, and coming back up to take another look and get another experience at Ohio State as maybe he's in the stretch run of his recruitment, has a future official visit with Alabama, a place that he's been several times as well. And, talking to people that spent time with Keon on his Ohio State visit, they thought that this was an Alabama-Ohio State deal. Obviously, Florida's the third team in the mix, and he visited Florida after Ohio State. But I think that Florida was, going into the Ohio State visit, we said, talking to some people around Ohio State, they thought that they had to make a move with Keon. I think that Florida had to also make a move with Keon, and
Ohio State made it.
Sounds like Ohio State has. Sorry, my phone's blowing up over here. Sounds like Ohio State has made, definitely made Keon feel excited about a potential future in Columbus, and he's going to get back up there and see more of the Buckeyes and continue to build those relationships with the people that are part of the program and school.
Yeah, we have standard here 24/7. Once you go on the air, everyone starts to blow up your phone to make it seem like you're the insider, but Steve's legit.
Yeah, I got Bill Kurelic calling me to say thanks. No, I'm just kidding.
When Keeley left, like you said, the talk was he was going to take the Alabama visit next. And everyone around here knows when it comes to defensive players, that's like the Grim Reaper looming over the situation. So I did find it interesting that he scheduled another visit back to Ohio State before that. Should we make a big deal out of that? Or do you think this is just he wanted to get up to another game? Because when he was here for the Notre Dame game, if you would have told me he was coming back from Wisconsin, it would have surprised me.
I think that Ohio State and the way that they recruit kids, they're in constant communication with their top targets from various angles. And, getting them back for the Wisconsin game, what will be a great environment, what should be a big win. I think it's another great opportunity for Ohio State to to make a move here.
Tell people a little. I think there was some general vibe, but before this, that Mateo Uiagalelei and Damon Wilson would be the two defensive ends Ohio State's focus on was more, intent. Now you've got Keeley in the mix. And obviously, you take all three at any time. Can you kind of compare the three and give us an idea why Keeley's ranked number one?
Well, there was a time where Ohio State was in the best position for Mateo. Maybe that's still true. I think that they're in a great spot for him near the top of his list, but it's really come on with the other two guys. I think that coming out of the Ohio State visit, there was some belief that the Buckeyes were in pole position for Damon Wilson, and then Keon Keeley here was committed to Notre Dame for so long. But I know that Ohio State was a program that was in touch with him for a long time, and he was excited about it. Now he can finally really explore those options since he's reopened the recruiting process. But Keon, he's 6'6", 242 pounds. You see the pictures of him standing next to LeBron James.
Or Chase.
Or Chase Young. he's already an imposing young man. And he's such a disruptive player. 16 and a half sacks as a junior. And he's just terrorizes quarterbacks off the edge. And then the other thing that just makes Keon so unique, and I wrote about it a little bit yesterday, is how
his background,
fluent he is. He can fit in anywhere. This is a young man that Stanford would salivate over. And he's an Ivy League. He's an Ivy League type guy. He's got some Michael Strahan type personality to him a little bit, where Michael Strahan is a massive alpha. When you put him in that football locker room, he was the unquestioned leader of any football team he was on. But then you can also put him on Good Morning America, sure, and he can charm all our wives and that crowd as well. Keon Keeley's that versatile of a person, with his traits. And I don't know him as well as what you see of Michael Strahan and how extremely outgoing he is. But anyone that interacts with Keon Keeley just talks about what a great young man he is and how he can fit in anywhere. And so he's just an exciting prospect and a player that any program would like to have in their program for the intangibles he brings. Damon Wilson, he's obviously a freak athletically. You're talking about the explosiveness in the weight room and the power that he brings to the field. He's got as much upside as anyone in the class, in my opinion, too.
Yeah, if they were somehow able to get Keon Keeley and Damon Wilson. Keeley, I read your story yesterday. The fact that he's been to Europe about 10 times and a Florida kid who had already committed to Notre Dame, I do think Ohio State has a better chance at a guy like this than your traditional Southern recruit who may be just more prone to the SEC. Keon Keeley, like you said, is I'm not going to – you don't want to put too much pressure on the kid, but this is what a future professional football player looks like, kind of the well-rounded jack of all trades. So give us an idea of what you got coming up this weekend here. Will you be on the road, or they got you camped out talking to recruits these days?
So I'll be covering some of the big recruiting weekends in college football. Obviously, that's first and foremost. Be chasing around the Wiltfong boys as they play their sports in our community as well. And
you still wearing those Colts jerseys? Good.
Yeah. We are half season ticket holders, and we have
you get a rebate.
We have the Colts Chiefs on Sunday. So.
Oof.
The Chiefs are in town playing at an extremely high level, and the Colts are doing the opposite right now. But be a good family time. Make some memories there, Daniel. Speaking of Indianapolis sports, scouting Pacers season opening tickets the other day to take the family, and they got the Wizards in town for that one. I don't know. You're a Wizards fan. I don't know.
You do know that.
The short.
I don't like to be public about that.
For
do I have any Wizards behind me? No, this is my all-star wall here. Roger, Cal, Scotty, and Urban. Those are my dudes.
No Michael Jordan in a Wizards uni?
No, but my children wore that, and I was there for most. I was a season ticket holder during that. It's an underrated time. If you kids want to go on YouTube and learn something about Michael Jordan, he was fantastic as a Wizard. People don't know that. Speaking of fantastic, we appreciate Steve stopping by. to have the director of football recruiting following Adam Finkelstein, the director of basketball recruiting shows. This is just the powerhouse podcast to end all podcasts. So we appreciate Steve stopping by. He'll be back here on Tuesday. Have a good one, Bucknutters.
Take care, y'all. See you on the front.